Thank you very much, and thank you, Mike and Angela, for having me here. I'd also like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the original, traditional and continuing custodians of the land that we're gathering on tonight. It is a privilege to come along tonight and talk to you. It feels like only a few months ago we were here talking about saving UTAS, and now we're at an election where, again, this is a really critical topic. So a little bit about me before we start. For those who don't know, my name is Kristie Johnston. I am the independent member for Clark. I was elected to Parliament in 2021 and have been an independent member all that time. Prior to that, I was the Mayor of Glenorchy City Council from 2014 to 2021, and then an Alderman on Glenorchy City Council from 2011 as well. It was my privilege to serve a council during a very difficult time for that council, where I called out a lack of integrity, maladministration and pure dodginess at a council at that time, and to see the council through to better times. Personally, I live in Glenorchy. I'm a mum of 2 beautiful children and about to become the bonus mum of 3 other children as well when I get married later this year. And I've loved this whole area and been passionate about being involved in my local community right from when my children were young. I'm a UTAS graduate. I did arts law at UTAS in 1999 and then went back when my youngest was only 6 months old and thought it was a great idea when I had a small baby to do a Masters in Criminology and Corrections, but got through it nonetheless. So I'm really proud UTAS graduate. My way into politics was a bit different. I didn't think I would go into politics, so I was very much focused on law and on criminal justice and things like that. But when I was starting to volunteer in my local community, I saw so many problems, and I'm not the kind of person who likes to whinge from the sidelines unless I'm willing to put my hand up and try and be part of the solution. That's how I got onto council, and that's how I saw my pathway into state parliament as well. So I'm really proud of my time in state parliament. We've achieved a number of things. Now, you'll hear a lot during this election campaign about how the crossbench are destabilising, unproductive parliaments are minority parliaments, or I like to think of them as power-sharing parliaments, where the power is shared amongst the community and those who are representing the community, not just the parties. So during my time in Parliament, there's 2 things I want to highlight that I'm quite proud of that I've achieved, and I haven't done this alone because it took a Parliament to agree. So I want to acknowledge my colleague who worked with the crossbench to achieve some really good things. One thing I did was a Family Violence Act amendment to try and make women and children much safer in the community, and I acknowledge that another crossbench member made a similar amendment too to try and protect children and women in particular. So that's a really proud amendment. The other thing I did more recently was had a motion about budget repair approved by the Parliament. Now, how timely is it that we did that? And unfortunately, part of the motion, which was going to hold the government to account in delivering a really critical report, they called an election before that report was due. But it was a really critical motion which looked at 4 steps that the Parliament could do to try and make it more accountable, the government more accountable when it comes to budgetary matters. And it came directly from an amazing economist, Saul Eslake, who the government and largely the opposition have ignored. So on budget repair, there are 4 key things that we need to do around budget repair. The first is around capital expenditure. We cannot continue to keep spending money when we don't have it. So keep building things that we don't need and we can't afford. Everybody understands that with their own household budgets. You have a set amount that you can afford and you build to that. You don't overspend, you build to what you can afford at the time. That's what the government needs to do. The second thing we need to do is to raise revenue in fair ways. And this is something that both the major parties aren't talking about. When you hear them talk about their budget repair issues, they talk about cutting expenditure. But they don't talk about the other side of the ledger. The other side of the ledger that Saul Eslake also talks about. The other side of the ledger that the Treasury also talks about. So when they released their PFO last week, they both said that Treasury and Saul Eslake said you can't ignore revenue. There are 2 sides of the ledger we've got to deal with here. And we could be asking more. We could be asking salmon farms, mining companies to pay their fair share for the natural resources that are ours that they use. The other thing we can do is to cut corporate welfare. So a classic example of this is that we are spending millions of dollars to prop up the gambling racing industry. Now that's money that can be putting roofs over Tasmanians' heads, can be putting more teachers in schools, can be putting more nurses and doctors on the front line, but we're propping up a cruel racing industry. It's madness, it's corporate welfare, and we can stop that. And the other thing we can do is stop pork barrelling. We know that elections are incredibly expensive. They are very expensive. $1.4 billion the last election cost us in pork barrelling. We need this election like a hole in the head, quite frankly, at this particular point in time when it comes to budget. So we can do that. The other thing I'm really keen to talk about too is around the stadium. I've been very vocal that I do not support a stadium. We do not need one, we can't afford it, and it's in the wrong place. It's as simple as that. And all the puff pieces, all the walkthrough videos that the government, Macquarie Point Development Corporation, the Tasmanian Devils put out, doesn't change that. Does not change it. We can't afford it, we don't need it, and it's in the wrong place. And I thoroughly support the excellent work the TPC are doing, particularly this week. They're pushing ahead with good evidence-based planning, one that involves community consultation, because again, we see a lack of community consultation in a number of things that the government are doing. That then obviously leads into the UTAS and the Sandy Bay campus. Along with the Greens, I stood very strongly opposing the government's backflip on their initial bill. The university is precious to Tasmania. It's our university. We ought to be respecting the Tasmanians who build it and support it. And I am devastated by the recent cuts that are going to the university in particular. So I'd like to acknowledge the cuts to the arts faculty. Appalling. I understand that German might be cut. I'm not sure if that's been confirmed, but that was what I heard earlier this morning. We need to be investing in our university here in Sandy Bay. They can sell the CBD properties. They can put more teachers, more courses on. Be the centre of excellence in education that they ought to be here on the Sandy Bay campus. It is a no-brainer. But the government are turning their backs on that. And to be quite frankly, quite frankly, there's no difference between the Labor and Liberal parties. They are the same on the platforms, and you need a strong crossbench to be really your voice in the community. Thank you.
On Saturday, July 19th, vote 1, Kristie Johnston, Independent for Clark.
I'm Kristie Johnston, and I authorise this ad.